right. So you have two of the three hosts of the Not So Grand Jury. You got myself, Derek, and you have Geoff here.
Hello.
Along with Jeff's cat, I believe that's Bowie.
Yeah, Bowie's here.
Bowie's here. Okay. So we've got a few things to talk to you about in a sidebar. First, as we've been doing recently, is to tell you what's coming up on future episodes. So the first thing we are going to mention is that we are currently on a little bit of a Scrubs arc.
And this is all in anticipation of the new season coming out.
Right. So we ended up doing a sort of a sort of combining of three different random episodes. And I say random, they're not random. They have sort of legal aspects to them. In some capacity, they involve good old Ted Buckland, the, lawyer, I almost use in quotes, of Sacred Heart Hospital. So the episodes, if you want to get ahead and watch them, are Season 5, Episode 8, My Big Bird, Season 6, Episode 17, Their Story, which is one of the few times where JD passes the narrating responsibility off to other people. In this case, it was Ted, Jordan, and the Todd. And then the final one is Season 8, Episode 8, My Lawyers in Love. I actually think there's some decent episodes. They're a little off. They're a little different than the standard episodes. And you're going to find out that Geoff is not a huge fan necessarily. But hey, we will, I don't want to spoil too much. So if you want to get ahead, the next two episodes of our podcast are going to talk about some combination of those three episodes. Also, I have commentary on our last episode of Scrubs. So from my friend Kevin, who we are hoping to also have on as a guest sometime soon. So since he's probably listening, this is my reminder to him to let me know when he wants to record so we can get him on as a guest host. He actually noted after listening to our last episode that we talked about two different things at two different times. One, Geoff, known to not exactly be a sporty fellow, Jeffrey Blackwell,
that's fair,
mentioned the baseball movie Rookie of the Year at one point in the show.
Yeah, I think because the patient's serve had lost some zip.
Yes, correct. So you had brought up Rookie of the Year, which we were all so surprised by that you even brought up a sports movie, that then later in the episode when we were trying to list off all the roles that Neil Flynn, who plays the janitor in Scrubs, all the roles he's played outside of Scrubs, we failed to mention Rookie of the Year when he was in fact playing the Cubs first baseman in that movie. Just missed. Like that's just sad for us that like you brought up a sports movie and we couldn't keep going and mention that Neil Flynn was also in that movie. So a slight mea culpa for us also, in case Neil Flynn's listening, because of course, why wouldn't he be listening? Of course. You should get in touch with us so you can come on and tell us all the other things we screwed up about your character or other things. We'd love to have you, Neil.
Yeah, he doesn't have a new season of a TV show to talk about. Yeah.
No. We'll talk about whatever he wants. So Neil, come on our podcast. Anyway. But the main reason we wanted to talk about the sidebar is we've been asking for at least a few weeks now for people's favorite episodes, things they want us to do in 2026, so on and so forth. So I figured we'd take the opportunity to do that. First, we actually just recorded an episode with previous guest and soon-to-be new guest, Wes Rist, who is a very good friend of the podcast, as well as going to be hosting a couple of different shows. He had separately given me his favorite episodes, which weirdly didn't include his own episode. So clearly Wes doesn't want to toot his own horn, as it were. But he had mentioned Shawshank Redemption, Spy Game, where we had Will Kent on as a guest. And Shawshank, obviously, we had on Andrea Fenster as a guest. Thomas Crown, where we had my friend Matt Simpson on as a guest. And then Daredevil and Minority Report, which were just the three of us. I will say, I'm not far off in that my favorite episodes are ones where we had guests on because we theoretically have someone who knows more than us in that area and can talk about it, which I will say for many people, Shawshank is one of their favorite episodes. I've gotten that from a lot of people.
Okay.
The only sad part is I've gone back and listened to it and our audio is kind of crap. So sorry for that.
Yeah, but that's going to happen over a podcast.
It is going to happen. But I will say Andrea is very good. She did set a very high bar for our guests, having a 22-page outline before we even, as our first ever guest. So she was ready to talk about it. And we thank her very much for doing that for us. So, and I also want to mention, we have a new review. I will just quote it because there's no other way to quote it. Long-time listener here. I am Derrick's wife. That is how obviously, thank you, love of my life, for commenting on our show.
She didn't like it, right?
She does like the show. So I guess, listen, I feel like if she didn't, she would actually not listen, or she wouldn't go out of her way to listen. She does go out of her way to listen. She listens to our shows when she's commuting in from work, which is a couple days a week. So I give her credit on that. She also, in our Christmas episode, we asked for favorites from 2025. So she did give them to us. Her number one was Shawshank Redemption, which we just talked about. Her second was actually Law and Order. So those were two episodes where my sister came in as our first non-lawyer guest. But we talked a lot about gun control laws in the U.S. and how ineffective they are. She had recommended that people listen to learn a little bit more about PLACA, which Colleen spent significant time on, both in the actual episode itself. Well, actually, did she? Yeah, she mentioned a little bit in the episode itself, but then we also had a separate sidebar on it. So we do highly recommend that you go back and listen to those. If you are interested in gun control laws or learning a little bit more about them, we highly recommend that you go back and listen to season 10, episode 19, Selfish, as well as the sidebar 6 after, where we talk about PLACA. It's myself and my sister sort of riffing off of it and her giving some very valuable information on it. So highly recommend you listen to that. And then my wife also mentioned, the last but not least, Love Guaranteed, which was a re-release from the first go around of the podcast, which actually basically is the reason why we are doing this, is that Geoff and Mike brought me on as a guest, and we talked a lot about Love Guaranteed. And she has asked for more ridiculous rom-coms that don't stay true to the law, which there's a lot of those. I'm sure we can get into it.
I think still to date, the longest raw recording of either iteration of this podcast, even including the one we just finished, which was lengthy.
Which was about 2 hours and 10 minutes or so. And I believe the Love Guarantee one, we almost were going 3 hours at one point.
Yeah. The episode is not that long. I did heavy editing.
Right. Yeah. But still with a lot of shit to talk about too. We could probably do an entire other episode on just other things to discuss, which we may. That very well could happen. So yeah, that was, thank you, darling, for that comment, as well as talking about your favorite episodes of 25. A couple other things that had come up from friends of mine. Oh, go for it, Geoff.
She says, please do more ridiculous rom-coms. Let me just say that I think I know what our next Love Guaranteed equivalent is going to be. More on that later.
Fantastic. By the way, Love Guaranteed in its own little realm, but we'll see if it can. Well, it might rise to that. It very well may rise to that. You've watched it. I haven't yet. I haven't watched it yet.
Okay.
So
talk to me when you have.
Okay. Noted. So we may or may not have an episode coming up probably in a few months that may hit
that's fair.
The sort of Love Guaranteed level of ridiculousness. A couple other episodes that people brought up as their favorite. We had a couple people mention Trial of the Chicago 7, which I will say was a fun one to record and to talk about. Also interesting that it's one of the few where it was a movie based on an actual trial that happened in real life. So it was a little interesting to talk about the legal accuracies, because the legal accuracies was like what actually happened at the trial based on the transcripts, which was interesting.
Right. One of those situations where the truth was even more ridiculous, off the wall than what we saw in the movie. Yeah.
Right. Like if you watched it, and in fact I did, without knowing what happened at the trial, you'd be like, wow, this is an insane, like over the top thing based on. No, they actually took weirder shit out because they're like, it doesn't seem real. And it's like, right, it doesn't seem real, which is hilarious. One of my friends, Emily Schuster, who I'll give a very brief shout out, is a colleague of mine who is a digital marketer with Jigsaw Digital Strategies. Highly recommend her if you need any digital marketing. She mentioned that the international, what she referred to as the international law one, which I believe she meant as Captain America Civil War, which was the one that Wes was on, was one of her favorites. And I've had a few people mention that the international law conversation was one of their favorite conversations. I just will note that I did the first ever little nutshell, the, international law nutshell for 5 minutes that I didn't completely screw up. So I will take a very small amount of credit for having teased international law. And then Wes obviously took it from there and talked about it much more intelligently than I did. But I will say I enjoyed that episode, and I enjoyed the episode. Honestly, I just enjoyed the episode we just finished with Wes. So hopefully that will be a good one. Anytime we have some type of guest on, those are some of my favorite episodes. And it's partially because I have to do Wes, and it's partially because, I think they are fun episodes where people are really getting into their profession, their expertise. And I think which is one of the reasons why we started this podcast was to get people who have their expertise on. So for those of you out there who are lawyers and have a level of expertise in something and want to be on, please reach out to us because we would love to.
Definitely. I'll note as much as I hate the show, I did enjoy our discussion of How to Get Away with Murder, the pilot episode. That was episode 6 of season 1 of this run of the Not So Grand Jury.
Yep.
It was my second time discussing that show, but that one is particularly egregious in terms of how bad they get the law, which does lead, I think, to our best conversations.
I will say our best conversations do tend to be in scenarios where it is a sort of bastardization of the law is where we thrive, as it were. And I will also say I'm just gonna throw out Suits as being a couple of my favorite episodes too, because they were so ridiculous. Those were fun to talk about as well.
Oh yeah, those were pretty absurd.
Absolutely.
Just in terms of how not to run a law firm. Yeah.
Yeah. You compete against each other, right? That's how that works.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. On both sides of the V. That's how that works. I also want to talk about what episodes we should do in 2026. I will say Jeff and I had a sort of, we'll refer to as a classic Zoom with a bunch of colleagues and friends of ours a few weeks ago, where we got a list of like 30 off of that, partially in thanks to a Mr. Michael Pyle, the executive director of the International Law Student Association, who I think took it upon himself once every 5 minutes to just pick another movie to shout out in the middle of the Zoom. So we got some ideas.
Most of which I had never heard of. Some I thought were jokes, but are actually all movies with relevance to our podcast. So I was, very surprised.
There was a while where he started shouting out things, and I actually thought he was just making up words. So yes, but it turns out they're actually they exist. So we might end up doing some of those.
It is going to take us 2 years to get through just those. But
fair enough. My wife mentioned in her comment, more ridiculous rom-coms. We certainly are going to have at least one of those coming up and possibly multiple. We also have requests for Succession, which I think is a good one too. I think that could be a fun one to talk about.
Which I've never seen.
I have never seen it either, but I having done some very brief research into it, I'm like, this could be fun. One of my Gen Z clients brought up Legally Blonde. We've talked about this before. Legally Blonde has to fall into our sort of low-hanging fruit category of like shows that really are the sort of quintessential legal movie or legal show.
Yeah. Our special occasion shows.
Right. Exactly. Legally Blonde, A Few Good Men.
My Cousin Vinny
are all those. I can see us doing Legally Blonde potentially as our second year anniversary show. TBD.
And full disclosure, Mike and I did an episode of that, not even on the first run of the show, but as a test for whether or not this could work as a podcast.
I will say, as someone who definitely didn't listen to that, but I'm going to guess that wasn't your best work.
Oh, no. No, I think if I remember right, I recorded that in a tiny room with bare walls and a bunch of cardboard boxes around me because I was preparing to move to DC at the time. And it was not great.
Let's just say the audio could be interesting. So you might want to re-record an episode of Legally Blonde. So I certainly could see that coming up as one of our, possibly our second year anniversary episodes or another sort of special episode for us to do. Otherwise, I will note, and I forget I apologize. Someone emailed us and asked for us to do Oz, the prison show. I'm not going to lie. I'm having a hard time getting through an episode of that show because of how intense it is. Eventually, we're going to do Oz, and I do think we will do at least one episode of it. And possibly that could be a good one to bring Andrea back on if she wants to come back on, because it could be a fun one.
Sure.
I'm not sure if I'm going to want to do more than one. It's a lot.
That's fair.
It's like 2x Shawshank. Like it's intense.
Yeah, Oz and The Wire are going to be some intense episodes when we do get around to doing them. Yeah.
And what's interesting is, and maybe it's, I don't know what it is, but like, because there are definitely some intense episodes of The Wire, but it's also very well done. That's like, I loved watching it. I have not been able to get through half of an Oz episode without being like, I need to go do something wholesome for an hour or so to make myself feel better. So at some point, I'm going to subject you all to it, but it can't be more than an episode, and it's going to be an intense one. So, yeah. Geoff, do you have anything else that we really need to do in 2026?
I will say, this doesn't have to be 2026, but I've said it a couple times before already. If you are listening and know somebody who is a JAG officer or former JAG, would love to get in touch with you and see if you'd like to come on and do A Few Good Men at the very least, because we actually just recorded an episode that could have had a JAG officer, but it wasn't really necessary, quite frankly, given the context. But for A Few Good Men, we gotta have a JAG officer or former. Unfortunately, we just don't happen to not know any JAG officers. Well, no, we know a couple, but they are current.
Active JAG officers. We would like people who are no longer active JAG officers.
Yes. Because they will be able to talk about it with us and not be bound by their special rules.
In fact, former anything would be helpful. Former prosecutors, former,
Sure.
Like if you were previously in a profession that did not allow you to talk about things and now you can, we would love to have you on.
It really is one of the drawbacks of this. That, like, we are at an age where basically all our friends are currently practicing. And so very often are bound by particular rules of ethics and have responsibilities that preclude them from coming on the show and talking to us about the things they would love to talk about if they could.
Correct.
Yeah.
So if you are listening and you are one of the people that are currently not in that profession, we would love to talk to you. Or if you know someone, let us know. And again, just as a general request, because we do listen to you, if you have other suggestions for shows or movies we should do, please message us. If you know us personally, message us personally. And if not, you have all of the things at the end of the episode that will tell you how to get in touch with us. Cool. Good times, Geoff. As always, see you soon.
Talk to you soon, Derek.
The Not So Grand Jury is sponsored by Morwa P. LLC.
The opinions expressed in the Not So Grand Jury are those of the hosts themselves, and not of their respective employers.
The theme music for the Not So Grand Jury is from Gustav Holst's Jupiter and is in the public domain.
If you'd like to get in touch with us, if you want to suggest future movies, or even if you want to offer corrections, you can email us at notsograndjury@gmail.com or message us on any of our social media accounts.
The Not So Grand Jury is copyright 2026, all rights reserved.